Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Isaiah, the 26th chapter. Just continuing from where we left off in 25. And as you see, it says here, song of trust in God's protection. All right, as Isaiah 26 goes into, a main portion of the deliverance that the Lord is going to bring for the nation of Israel, starting with his elect. So this is Isaiah chapter 26, verse 1. In that day shall this song be sung in the land of Judah. And you notice whenever Isaiah, mentions in that day, that's future, right? From his time, that's prophetic. So basically when that time comes, where this vision he is seeing, or this thing he is talking about, is being fulfilled, or it's gets fulfilled, that's in that day. Okay. So it says here, shall this song be sung in the land of Judah, right? Which this being a song of praise. We have a strong city. Salvation will God appoint us for walls and bulwarks. So we know that this is going to be, really after the Lord comes back, right? And delivers the elect of the nation of Israel, because that salvation, we don't have it right now yet, right? Not in its fullness. And that's going to come when Yahushai comes and delivers his elect. But this sort of metaphorical mention here of likening salvation to walls, right, and bulwarks is like a fortress, and that's really to emphasize the greatness of the deliverance, right, and the surety of it, that it's going to be like a fortress or like a wall around us. Verse 2: Open ye the gates, that the righteous nation which keepeth the truth may enter in. Right, and we know that righteous nation is referring on to the nation of Israel. And we also know that those that are entering through these gates, right, which is basically symbolic for salvation, right, having the preeminence, right, and being welcomed into the kingdom, you could say, that's going to start with the elect, right? The rest of the wicked of our people, they're not going to have that privilege to walk in, right, through the gates as they are now. They're going to have to come in through the loins of the elect. Verse 3: Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusteth in thee. All right, and those that are whose mind is stayed on the Lord, right? You meditate upon the Lord, based on what we read in the scriptures. What does the Lord require of you, right? And you do your best to maintain that mindset and that way of life. Right, putting your trust in the Heavenly Father will allow you to increase your faith in the Lord and your fear in the Lord, and hence your actions are going to move accordingly. And when you have a mindset like that, you're in as it says, perfect peace, right? You're not troubled by anything of this world, because all of those are under Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai. And if your mind is stayed upon the Lord and you understand the way the Lord works, nothing in this world really troubles you or, troubles your peace. Now, I think Yahushai also mentioned, it's in my peace I leave with you. That's in, here we go. John chapter 14, verse, I'm going to start at 26. And this is Yahushai speaking. But the Comforter, which is the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things, and bring all things to your remembrance, whatsoever I have said unto you. And that makes sense, right? Because there were some of the things that Yahushai said unto them, even at that time, that they may have heard, but didn't fully make sense to them, right? But when the Spirit of the Lord came upon them and they started to grow, the disciples at that time, that is, they started to grow in the Spirit in abundance. Some of those things came back to their minds and it made sense. Oh, this is why he said this. This is why he said this. This is what it means when this was written of him to do X, Y, and Z. And even more so in this time, how we're remembering these things by reading the scriptures, right? Which is also likened onto a book of remembrance, but it's making more sense to us because we have the Holy Spirit now. Verse 27, peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. See, because the peace of the world is pseudo peace, it's temporary, and it's conditional, right? Peace of the world is conditional. When you have peace because you have money, you don't have to worry about the things that money can't that those who don't have money can't afford or supply for themselves. When you lose that money, you lose that peace. Okay. If you had peace because you became one of the top fighters in the world and you feel invincible and you feel like, ain't nobody can mess with me, you get injured, that goes away. See, so whatever peace that this world can give you is temporary and conditional. But when you have the peace of the Lord, right, through trusting in him and letting your mind be stayed upon the Lord, it doesn't matter what comes upon you. You'll always have that peace, whether it's through infirmity, losing a loved one. Like, no matter what calamities we go through here, there's always comfort in the Lord to get through it all. So going back to Isaiah 26, that's why it makes sense as it says, "Thou will keep him in perfect peace," right? So the Lord is going to keep your mind stable, because you're keeping it within the realm of his domain. Verse 4, trust ye in the Lord Yahweh forever. For in the Lord Yahweh, says Jehovah in the Hebrew, it's Yahweh, is everlasting strength, right? And so if you notice, regardless of what situation you're put in, those that trust in the Lord from generation to generation to generation will always overcome in one way, shape, or form or another. Now you might say, well, what about the 7 brothers and their mother in the book of Maccabees who trusted in the Lord? How did they overcome if they were still put to death? Because when you look on the grand scheme of things, why did they resist, or what were they resisting? They were resisting ultimately basically like making an enemy out of the Lord, which would lead to a future detriment. Okay. And by going through that trial they went through, their faith was strengthened. They were made pure, as it says in Daniel, the 11th chapter, right? They were made pure and overcame in that sense, really like a spiritual overcoming. So regardless of what situation you're in, trusting in the Lord is going to be an everlasting strength that'll get you through whatever you find yourself in. For he bringeth down them that dwell on high, the lofty city. Now, when you look in here, the word lofty, all right, it says here, shagab, to be high, inaccessibly high, to be exalted, right? To act exaltedly. And the Lord has brought down many kingdoms that were on high. But the primary one here, which is that those that are dwelling on high or the lofty city, is Babylon the Great. Okay, they are, for example, these heathens have done wicked things. A good portion of them are evil. But there's one primary nation of people that are known as the wicked. Okay, so similarly, you've had proud empires and so on, but there's one that's infamous for for that role, okay, which is Babylon the Great. As it says, he layeth it low, even to the ground. He bringeth it even to the dust, meaning from that high exalted state, it has been reduced. So here's one example of what that looks like in real life. Imagine somebody that's very wealthy, somebody that's very rich, going bankrupt, right? Somebody that's very wealthy and very rich going bankrupt and ending up probably on the street begging for food is an example of one that is on high, that has been laid low, down to the ground, even to the dust, meaning they've been brought down to a very low state. And real quick, when we go to Isaiah, the 47th chapter, which is also speaking about Babylon, right? It's something similar said here. And yeah, this is Isaiah 47:5. Sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, For thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. And then if we come down a bit more, see if I can find where it is. Maybe it's above, and my eyes are just missing it right now. Take my time here real quick. Yeah, here it is. It's actually in verse 1. Come down, sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground, there is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans. For thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate, right? So this in Isaiah 26 being known as the lofty city, right? And that high place being brought down to the dust, brought down to the ground, is also reemphasized here in Isaiah 47. Verse 6, the foot shall tread it down, even the feet of the poor. And the poor here are referring to Israel, okay, starting with the elect. And we keep emphasizing the elect because think of it like this. When we speak about Esau, right, and we're going into prophecy and so on, yes, sometimes it's in reference, like certain things are attributed to the whole nation, but a good majority of times when we mention Esau or the elites, right, it is in reference to the heads of that nation, right, the prominent ones of that nation, not every single Edomite, because, for example, Revelation 13 and 16, and he causeth all. Yeah, that's Esau, but that's not the Edomite that's running a bar in Manhattan, right? We're talking about the ones that are on the high level, the super rich elites that have the power to do that. That's why we always, when we say Esau, we usually refer to these elites or these rich banking families because they're the ones in that position. So most of the things we speak of pertaining to Esau and prophecy apply mainly to them. Similarly, most of the things when we speak of here, like the poor or, the deliverance of Israel, yes, it's the nation, but it's mainly focused on the elect because it really starts with them, right, on the right hand. So the poor here, right, it's the nation of Israel, right, but as it says here, the feet of the poor are what's going to tread it down. Well, we know that that's going to really be the elect that are going to have the privilege to do so, because the rest of the nation that are not of the elect and that are wicked will be destroyed. So as it says here, even the feet of the poor and the steps of the needy. So the Lord is going to raise up this quote unquote poor and needy to trample over this high, lofty city. Okay, and that's going to be by way of having the privilege to witness the destruction of this place, and then have the rulers of this current society under your control, right, in captivity under you, serving you. The way of the just is uprightness. Thou, most upright, doth weigh the path of the just, right? So the just being, once again, the elect, it's uprightness, right? That's the mindset or the way of life that the elect walk in, right, and strive to walk in. And the Most High, being the most upright, doth weigh the path of the just. Now, when you go into the word weigh over here, it goes into palas, which is to like level, right? So it says here to weigh or to make level, to balance, to make smooth, make level, right? And as it says here, to roll flat, i.e. prepare a road, okay? And also to resolve, i.e. weigh mentally. Now, when you come down here, let's see what they have. I wonder if this is the only part here, right? So to make level, to prepare a way, and Isaiah 26 and 7, this is one of those precepts that's that aligns with this definition of palas. So when you come back to Isaiah 26, right, what Isaiah is saying here is that the Most High makes plain or makes smooth or prepares the path of the just, so that they don't they don't have to basically so they have a path to walk down. Okay. Verse 8, yea, in the way of thy judgments, O Lord Yahweh, have we waited for thee. The desire of our soul is to thy name and to the remembrance of thee. Right. And why have we waited for the Lord in the way of his judgments? Because it is that path of the Lord's judgments that is also going to lead to that salvation. right? And we're waiting for the Lord to bring that judgment, that this wicked society can be overpassed and the righteous can flow through, right? The kingdom of heaven can come to pass. So you can think about it like that, right? Like if you were to actually visualize a way, right, or a path where the Lord's judgment will come through, that path where we're currently at, waiting for the Lord's judgment, is basically blocked by this wickedness. It's blocked by this wicked empire over here. So we're waiting for the Lord to bring that judgment to clear that path that Lord willing we may be able to go through, right? As I mentioned in the verse above, how he weighs the path, right? We may be able to go through to the kingdom, right? It says here, the desire of our soul is to thy name and to the remembrance of thee. And one example is that's why, whether consciously or subconsciously, you always think about, the name of the Lord. You think about the Lord. Sometimes you may be even having a dream and you're in a bind or a tough situation. And in the dream, you call upon the name of the Lord because it's in your spirit, right? The desire unto the Lord is within your spirit, to where even when you're not consciously aware, you still call upon the Lord. Okay, as it says, and to the remembrance of thee, right? The memorial of the Lord. Verse 9, with my soul have I desired thee in the night. Yea, with my spirit within me will I seek thee early. Right. And when you look at this in the, I believe in the NLT, right, as it says, all night long I search for you. In the morning I earnestly seek for God. For only when you come to judge the earth will people learn what is right. See, so we're constantly seeking the Lord, right? Nighttime, daytime, because all around us is what? Wickedness. And Ezekiel 9:4 into 5, right, talks about the men that sigh and cry for the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. When you're sighing and crying, you're desiring and seeking the Lord, that he may come and rectify this situation here. Okay? As it says, for when thy judgments are in the earth, the inhabitants of the world will learn righteousness. And we know that because when the Lord's judgments are not executed speedily in the earth, as it says in Ecclesiastes 8:11, the hearts of men is fully set in them to do evil. So when the Lord brings this judgment into the earth, all that wickedness is going to be wiped away and righteousness is going to be instilled. And people are going to realize and fear the Lord and understand, okay, we're not supposed to be doing this wickedness. And if we want to make it and survive, we gotta follow the ways of the God of Jacob. Verse 10, let favor be shewed to the wicked. So who's the wicked? Esau, Edom. Right, and that's in the book of Malachi, I believe it's the first chapter. Right, and the Lord says it, right, in verse 3, I hated Esau and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Let me see here. Yeah, whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build desolate places. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. Now, when you look into the word border over here, as it says, territory, right? Or region, figuratively, as it has here as well. So it says here, by extension, the border enclosed. So they are the habitation or the territory, the region of wickedness, right? If they were to be looked at as like a landmass, going into this region, you'd be crossing into the region of wickedness. That's why they're known as the wicked. And you can see it through their characteristics and the traits and the fruit of their behavior or their actions. So let favor be shewed to the wicked, yet will he not learn righteousness, because it's not their lot. Okay, the scriptures tell you in the book of Psalms, they speak lies as soon as they be born. Right? I believe that's Psalms 50, is it 58? 58 and 3? Right. The wicked are estranged from the womb, meaning they go astray, right? As it says, they go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. So they were created to be the wicked. You can't change that nature within them. Let's look into the word favor. Right. Gracious, right? Pity. To make gracious. So if regardless of what kind of And ultimately, what is the ultimate form of grace, right, or pity, is to try to show on the way of righteousness. But as it says, they're not going to learn righteousness because that is not their nature. That's not how they were created to be. And it continues to show you, as it says, right, in the land of righteousness, or in the land of uprightness, which is the land of Israel, will he deal unjustly and will not behold the majesty of the Lord. So there's a reason why today people don't look at, like, look at how in the ancient world, how people spoke about and thought about Jerusalem. It was known as, even from heathens, it was known as, hey, like, the people in the hill country, they have their God over there. Their ways are different. Their ways are, if they're on par with their God, like they're in his good graces, don't even try to go there because you're gonna get messed up. Right? Those are holy people. They're separate, right? And you're not to mess with them. The way that Israel was spoken of in ancient times, because of the Lord and the way we serve the Lord, we stood out for that. Even in the time of the book of Esther with Mordecai, the time of Daniel, Joseph, like many other, men of the Lord who, exhibited a great level of faith in the Lord, brought glory to the Lord. When you look today, people don't look at that land like that. They don't look at the people of that land like that either. And they don't glorify the Lord when they see that, because there's a lot of unjust dealings going on over there, a lot of perverseness, and a lot of anti-godly and ungodly behavior going on in there. And that's because the wicked is in there. As then he is dealing unjustly and not beholding the majesty of the Lord. Verse 11, Lord, when thy hand is lifted up, they will not see. And when you go into this, it's a bit clearer in the NLT. They pay no attention to your upraised fist. Now, imagine if you've been raised in a Jake household, you've had many times when, you've been disciplined, or you get disciplined so much that when your parent raises their hand, you flinch, right? Or you already know, all right, oh, let me calm down. And sometimes they're not actually going to hit you, but they just like make that motion, like, like watch yourself. Like, that's a warning, calm your ass down. So here, as Isaiah is saying, like, the Lord has lifted up his hand, but they're not even taking heed to that. Right. And so what happens if you say, like, your parent raises their hand and you don't take heed to that warning and you're still going on being disrespected, then that warning turns into, that was your warning, and then it comes down. Pow. So as it says here, but they shall see and be ashamed for their envy at the people, right? And let's look into this word envy over here. But eventually they're going to see when the Lord brings that deliverance, right, upon his people. And that's why it says in Wisdom of Solomon, the 5th chapter, right, is this he, right? How is he numbered among the children of God, right? So when you go into that word envy, all right, as it says, jealousy, envy of man, ardor of anger, right, of men against adversaries. So they're going to be ashamed when they see the deliverance of the Lord's chosen, because of that hatred and that envy that they've had for us. Yea, the fire of thine enemies shall devour them. And the fire of thine enemies is, think of it like the fire for your enemies, right? The fire that you have that you're going to use against your enemies. And so we know that the Lord is, because who are the enemies of the Lord? Ultimately, all these other nations. Okay, but there's a primary enemy of the Lord, which we just read of in Malachi. He had indignation against forever, right? And so he has fire prepared for them, because that's going to be the form of judgment this time around. Okay, and it's going to devour them, as it says. Verse 12, Lord Yahweh, thou will ordain peace for us, for thou also hast wrought all our works in us, right? And so that the wrought, meaning like the works that we have done, is through you, right? It's through you that we've been able to do these works. And the result of that is going to be that peace that the Lord is going to ordain for us. O Lord our God, other lords beside thee have had dominion over us. And you notice this Lord is in all caps, because in the Hebrew, the word there is Yahweh, right? Yahweh. But the other Lord, which is Ada one, let me see here, Ada one, yep. Adawan here is Adawan Yum because it's lords, plural. But this word for lords in the Hebrew goes into like a master, right? Or some like ruler over you. So as you can see here, right? Lord, master, reference to men. It could be a king, it could be a master, a superintendent of the household, etc., etc. And oh, matter of fact, it even goes into shit, husband, all right? Which the scriptures talk about that, right? Lords, kings, in references to men, right? You have here master, husband, prophet. Ain't that interesting? So really, prophets are lords too, right? To a certain degree. And husbands are lords to their women. And that's why it mentions how Sarah referred to Abraham as her lord. So anyway, going back to Isaiah 26, as it says, as it reads, other lords beside thee have had dominion over us. And when you look at the history of Israel and what we've gone through, yes, we've been subjected onto other rulers, right? Mainly other nations. And through that, right, they have imposed upon us the worship, right, of their gods and their customs. They tried it during the Persian Empire, during the time of Antiochus, right, during the reign of the Greeks. You notice that it wasn't just enough that they had conquered us, but especially during Antiochus' time, they wanted us to abandon our Lord, our God, and to follow their ways. And you had a good amount of Israelites that defected and did that. But the elect, the faithful, stuck to this, right? But by thee only will we make mention of thy name. And by mentioning the name of the Lord here, it's basically like to keep the memorial of the Lord, not any other gods, not any other heathens, but the one true living God, which is Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, in the name of his son Yahushai. They are dead; they shall not live. Right, so they're no longer, right. They reigned for a period of time, and they've come and gone. Right, they are deceased; they shall not rise. Now, in the terms of the heathens, obviously we know reincarnation still applies to them. But for example, when we were under the Egyptians, right, when Egypt was in its state, yes, they were they were lords over us, but eventually they died. They lost that dominion. And yeah, you have those spirits came back again, but they're not back in that position. Okay, that's what it means by them not rising again. Yes, they come back on the earth, but right now, if you look at the nation of people that were the ancient Egyptians in their glory, which were lords over us, they're in remote areas of Africa somewhere that you'd look at and be like, damn, you know, chasing hyenas and shit, washing their face with cow dung and cow piss. And I'm not making that up. You can look it up if you want, if you can stomach that. Anyway, as it says, therefore, and even Elam, right? We were subject under the Elamites, but they also died and left, and they have different, like they have their country now, like Iran and so on, but they're not over us as they were before, right? Therefore, hast thou visited and destroyed them, and made all their memory to perish, right? And that's what's going to happen, right? The Lord is going to bring that judgment. He's going to bring them down along with their deities and their gods, okay? Because a nation is also recognized also by its gods, right? That they serve and that they worship. And so all of that, the memorial of all of that is going to perish. Verse 15, thou hast increased the nation. O Lord, thou hast increased the nation. Thou art glorified. Thou hadst removed it far unto all the ends of the earth. And that it is going into like that border of the nation, which what this means is it's similar to what's that, Isaiah 60 or 62, a little one shall become a mighty nation. So the Lord has increased the nation by making us fruitful, and that's going to come ultimately by that deliverance and that peace. So we no longer have to fear having children, right? You no longer have to fear, having wives and being at peace. NLT, right? Oh Lord, you have made our nation great. Yes, you have made us great. You have extended our borders, and we give you glory. And that's what's going to happen, right? And it's going to extend so far to the point where we're going to have to, move out to different planets, which Yahweh Shai prepared. Verse 16, Lord Yahweh, in trouble have they visited thee. They poured out a prayer when thy chastening was upon them. And that's talking about, once again, the nation of Israel, starting with the elect. It's just using third person when it says they, still referring to Israel, right? So in trouble have they visited thee, and it's, once again, primarily the elect, because for the wicked of our people in trouble, they went even further astray. But for the elect in trouble, they drew near and nigh and closer to the Lord. And as it says, poured out a prayer when thy chastening was upon them, that the Lord may have mercy. And we still do that today. Verse 17, even Micah says that, right? I will endure the, roughly paraphrasing, like the chastisement of the Lord, for I have sinned against them, but still praying for deliverance. Like as a woman with child that draweth near the time of her delivery is in pain, right? When a pregnant woman is close to labor, right, or close to giving birth, she starts going through those contractions, and then eventually, right, she goes into labor. That's a painful time for her. So similarly, as it's saying here, we've been like a woman, right, that is in that time of being about to go into labor, and during that pain, and crieth out in her pangs, right, in those pains. So have we been in thy sight, O Lord. We have been with child, and have been in pain. We have, as it were, brought forth wind, right? So what Isaiah is saying here is like, we've suffered the pain, like as a woman who is pregnant, going through those birth pains, and yet we have brought forth wind, meaning we, like, the end of that was basically nothing, right? Let's get this in the NLT. We too, right, writhe in agony, but nothing comes of our suffering. Like a woman that endures that pain and is not able to bring forth that baby. We have not wrought any deliverance in the earth, neither have the inhabitants of the world fallen. So we've suffered the pain, we're still enduring the pain, but no deliverance has come forth. And the inhabitants of the world, as it says, have fallen. Neither have they fallen. These inhabitants are the ones causing us this pain, being the oppressors, and yet they're still here. They're still in power. So this is almost like a cry unto the Lord, as we read up above about how when he chastised us, because that's what he used these other nations, we poured out a prayer unto the Lord. Verse 19, thy dead men shall live together with my dead body, together with my dead body shall they arise. And this here is speaking about Yahweh Shai. Right now, we know when you go back during the time of Yahweh Shai being on the scene after he was crucified and put to death, upon his resurrection, you had people that also came back to life and came out of the graves, as the scriptures say, and lived full lives. See if I can find it in the cross reference here. I believe it should be in the book of Matthew. Here we go. Matthew 27 and 51. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent. Right. And this was the when Yahweh Shai died. And the graves were open, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose. Nobody is sleeping actually in the earth. Nobody digs up in the grave and goes to sleep over there. No, it doesn't happen. So when it says when they slept, it means they were dead. And the saints here are Israelites. So the Israelites that were dead rose up, verse 53, and came out of the graves after his resurrection. So after Yahweh Shai had risen up from the dead, a lot of Israelites that were already dead in past times also came back to life. They also resurrected and went into the holy city and appeared unto many. So people saw these people that they knew were dead, and they were like, whoa. Okay, and this is basically what happened back then during the time of Yahweh Shai, as it is mentioning here in Isaiah 26. And we know that it's also going to happen again in this time when Yahweh Shai comes back. Because in this time, we're also going to have those that were dead coming back to life, some to be rewarded and some to be destroyed. And they're going to come back at the return of Yahushua. So thy dead men shall live. It's really actual people that are dead. And the subsequent verses are going to emphasize that a bit more. Awake and sing, ye that dwell in dust. For thy dew is as the dew of herbs, and the earth shall cast out the dead, because the dead are buried in the earth. So when it says the earth shall cast out the dead, it means that they're going to come back to life. And keep in mind, the body is but what? Elements. Right? The actual physical human body is elements. That's why when you bury it in the earth, it's able to get broken down and decomposed back into the earth. When you bury somebody, or if you go to some ancient archaeological site where there were just bodies left over there, all you see left are the bones. Why is it just the bones? Because the body breaks down and decomposes back into the earth. And your bone is also made of elements that come together and form. So it's nothing for the Lord to just recompose this exact same elements that he used to make your body before and bring you back. It doesn't matter if you've been dead 50 years, 40 years. All right, that's an easy thing for the Lord to do. Anyway, verse 20. So verse 19, right, it goes into basically having the Salakia. Right, it goes into having the resurrection of the dead that are going to also happen at the time of Yahushua. That's also in Revelation, I believe, the 20th chapter, and the John, I want to say John, the 5th chapter. It talks about that as well. Verse 20, come, my people, enter thou into thy chambers. And these chambers are the chariots. So the people that are going to enter into those chariots are the elect. And how are they going to enter into those chariots? By getting beamed up. Why are they going to have to do that? Well, it goes on to read, and shut thy doors about thee, similar to how the Lord shut the doors of the ark. Hide thyself as it were for a little moment until the indignation be overpassed. So what is that indignation? That indignation is the destruction the Lord is going to bring to this place, primarily through that Third World War and the fire from the chariots of the Lord, right, which the world knows as UFOs. That's that great judgment day that everybody references. So during that time, the Lord is going to deliver his elect, his people, and keep them safe in the chariots. Revelation, the 18th chapter goes into that. Revelation, the 15th chapter also goes into that, until that wrath, that immediate destruction basically is overpassed. And then after that, the elect are going to come down. And that's in Revelation, the 21st chapter, that the Apostle John saw. For behold, the Lord Yahweh cometh out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. And that's going to be his indignation. And in the midst of that, the earth also shall disclose her blood. When you disclose something, you reveal it. You know how they say you disclose information, you're revealing it. So the earth disclosing her blood, the earth itself is not going to bleed. The blood is referencing those that died and were buried in the earth, and shall no more cover her slain. When you bury a body, you open up the earth, you put the body in there, and then you cover it up. So the reverse of that would be that those that were covered up in the earth are going to be uncovered, right? They're going to come out of the earth. Basically, they're going to come back to life. Once again, some to be judged and some to be delivered, right? The dead in Yahushua in particular are going to come back to be delivered. And one last precept to close it out is, I believe this was the book of John. Let's find out. 5th chapter. And let's see. Here we go. Wait, is it this? Yeah, John chapter 5, verse 25. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of God, and they that hear shall live. Yep. For as the Father hath life in himself, so hath he given to the Son to have life in himself. And he hath given him authority to execute judgment also, because he is the Son of Man. Marvel not at this, for the hour is coming, in the which all that are in the graves shall hear his voice, and shall come forth, they that have done good unto the resurrection of life, and they that have done evil onto the resurrection of damnation. So they're both going to be resurrected, but some are going to be resurrected for life to be delivered, and some are going to be resurrected of damnation to be destroyed or to be judged, i.e., according to the second death. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the book of Isaiah, the 26th chapter. Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha Kudash. Until next time, Shalom.